Yanko, we're on.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Smiths Falls Police Services Board for Tuesday, November 18th, 2025. On November 18th, 2025, we acknowledge the sacred land which Smiths Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and its rich indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and ancestral territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We're grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for land and water in order that we might be here today. We're also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smiths Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile all these relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, and mindful of generations to come. Call the meeting to order at 8:06 a.m. We have regrets from Vice Chair Dobson, who's away enjoying a vacation, and Deputy Chief Kettle is also away this week. So Chief Eppy will be handling all the duties here this morning.
Oh,
Any additions to the agenda? Seeing none. Oh, yes?
I'd like to add in camera item F. Sorry, I don't have.
F?
Related to an identifiable individual roughly.
So identifiable individual. Okay. Ask for a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Chris, second by Andrew, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. I'll ask for declaration of any financial pecuniary interest. Conflict of interest, there is none. Okay, the in-camera section of our meeting is first. I'm going to ask for a motion to move in camera. The Smiths Falls Police Services Board move in camera to discuss items pertaining to intimate financial or personal matters or other matters may be disclosed of such a nature, having regard to the circumstances that the desirability of avoiding their disclosure in the interest of any person affected or the public interest outweighs the desirability of adhering to the principle that proceedings be open to the public in accordance with Section 44 of the Community Safety and Policing Act. Moved by Chris, second by Andrew. All in favor? Okay, we're going to be in camera. We now have 6 in-camera items, and will probably be an hour or so, I assume. Hey, welcome back. We're back in open session after a fairly lengthy in-camera session. Asking for a motion for approval of the minutes from the previous meeting, October 21st. Moved by Andrew, second by Chris. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. On to business arising from the previous meeting, Chief, 2025 Budget Monitor.
So we're doing well budget-wise. We're anticipating $311,260 year budget. Anticipating, so overall, it's good. It's the same as what I mentioned last time about overtime and complex maintenance, but I'm under budget on other things, so that's what we anticipate to round off 2025.
Any questions or comments? No, and just so the public is aware, if any department in the town comes in under budget, it goes back to the town. So this isn't not carried over reserve, it will go back to the town and impact the overall surplus the town would have. Okay, moving forward, 2026 budget. Chief.
2026 budget is complete. Sent it to the board last week. However, there may have been not have had time to review it all. I did sit down with the board chair and the board vice chair and went over our budget for 2026, explaining some increase to it. However, for 2026 grant opportunities, I've been able to secure $353,000 overall in funding to support the 2026 budget. 2 full-time officer salaries are included in that, as well as 1 civilian salary. So there is some offset to our budget in a good way. So overall, we have to also take into consideration some inflation throughout with insurance costs, building costs, where I saw some of the, when we were on the lower side was the building. Where I was able to decrease was computer leases. Going to Rogers cell phone services had really decreased that. Using grant funding for technology such as laptops, computers, phones, all that has been deferred into grants. There's still a couple of grants I'm waiting to hear about, as NG 911 is year 4, still waiting to hear on that, as well as the victim support grant. We're going to apply again for the CISO grant. That's to do with the deputy chief, and that's to do with that analysis position that will continue into 2026. So overall, we're looking at a 3% increase to the budget. But again, my hope, and I think I'll be okay with having that even lower in 2026 if I'm successful with the grant funding for some of the salary offset and technology offsets. For capital line, there's a few capital items that I've added to 2026. And just take, I see there's a spelling mistake on helmets. I don't know why that was put in there by the town. They put the 2025 capital just to show you what was budgeted for 2025, what was spent, and what's projected in 2026. One of the things is a mobile interviewing kit through Axon. It's a kit that officers will be able to use indoors, outdoors, take it with them, and have the data and interviewing downloaded directly on through DEMS is what we use. That has been anticipated to be funded through a grant. I don't anticipate any capital spending on that. Annual vehicle replacement, we're looking at a hybrid model Ford Explorer, and I budgeted $100,000 for that. That it will include all the outfitting of it as well that we need to have in our cars. $25,000 to NG 911 that we do every year to ensure, as the grant funding ends this year, we want to ensure that there's enough money to support the new generation 911 in the future, because we don't know what the costs are going to be anticipated for that. Tablets for the cruisers. The computers in the cars are becoming obsolete, not working properly. Those allow officers to enable them to run people, to be able to do their paperwork, and having the CAD mapping anticipated in that tablet, as well as all their calls for service, and they can see everything on this little tablet in the car. That's $24,000 budgeted for that. CAD mapping was deferred from 2025's budget into 2026. And I was looking for pre-budget approval from the board to ask council to proceed with at least the CAD mapping, as that price is going to increase in 2026 January. And I've got pricing.
Can you explain, just for those who are maybe watching,
So
what CAD mapping is?
So because of the growth of our community, there's a lot of streets that have not been put into this mapping system for police. It hasn't been done in at least 10 years. The previous chief did away with CAD mapping. It is very expensive. However, it allows our officers in comms to pull up on a map and show the municipality where these streets are, and also tracks where officers are at the time as well. So it's officer safety, it's public safety, and it's something that hasn't been done in at least 10 years.
Sorry, can that CAD mapping be used to determine where incidents happen so we can have
Yeah, it can. And we also have geotab in our cruisers. So because I have this analyst person, I'm gonna be able to do that as well. So GPS and cruisers and CAD mapping both work together for officer and public safety, but it hasn't been done in so long. And it is an expensive piece to add. Hexagon seems to be the only company that does it for police across the province. And I've looked at alternative ways of doing it, and this one seems to be the only one that police services are using, is CAD mapping through Hexagon. So that's a cost of $73,675. And like I said, I was looking to do it last year, but we ended up doing the biometrics and bought some radios, so we were under capital for that. But there's not enough in our capital line to support the mapping into 2026, but I do want to hold pricing that we have for 2025. They won't start it anyways till January, but it's the pricing that I'm worried about, because they did indicate to me it's going to go up.
So you're looking, well, if this is, you'll still be looking for pre-budget approval from the town for that, yeah, regardless.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I guess we should have a motion if we agree to that, to enable her to move ahead and seek pre-budget approval. Okay, moved by Andrew, second by Chris. Okay, you've got your approvals.
We gotta be up to date. That's as simple as that.
So new tower upgrading emergency antenna, I anticipate 50,000. I haven't heard from Bell. I've been in continued contact with them. I anticipate 50,000 is going to be more than enough that I'll need to move the equipment from the old water tower to the new one, and also establish a network system here at Town Hall with the antenna that the fire has as that backup support as well, just to have that antenna. I don't anticipate, the town looks after the shelter costs and things like that, but the guy that works for Bell that I'm in touch with all the time, because he helps us with our radio system, said that they have shelters that are free at the Bell station in Ottawa. So I've let Paul McMunn know that, to go and check them out, see if they're suitable for the town, because they're just sitting there. And the only cost would be to get them to town, because they're anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000 in price. And if the town could save some costing getting that shelter, and what that does is it goes to the new water tower and keeps all of our equipment in this shelter place and keeps it dry and safe. So it's just a matter of him maybe going to look and seeing what's available and what would suit the town. So that part's out of my wheelhouse, but certainly if it's a cost saving that they have these free shelters, if it works for the town, that'd be great.
Could you also look at a cell tower on the south end of town for us too, please?
Yeah, I'll get right on to this. And I think that was it. 1, 2. Yeah, that was it. The rest is from 2025. And then we still have the transfer from reserves as well on the capital
Any
line.
further questions regarding capital? Okay, thank you. Operations?
2026 operation, like I said, I decreased in the budget on a number of things because of being able to purchase things through grants, technology, data, like all that's included. Our training, I'm hopeful to get more funding for our training, which also includes travel, mileage, etc. I did raise the complex maintenance up this year because we were over budget, and in fairness, buildings do require some work. And I apologize, one of the capital items I just had added, and it's just not on this budget, was I was advised that there's problems with the roof in our containers through the town, because I have management from town now doing inspections on our building. So anticipate about 20,000 on the capital line as well for the roofing. That was just put in yesterday to the town to add that to our capital line. But again, overall, a 3% increase, even with that addition, is on there. Salary recovery, we get back from WSIB, that goes back into our salaries, the grants. We'll continue to apply. I'll continue to apply with whatever I can. Complex maintenance went up, and then I'm looking at increasing our special constable to a full-time position in January. I think that position has been a huge impact on our police service to have a special constable. In the 2026 budget line, I did add having 2 comms to full-time from part-time. The special goes from part-time to full-time, and 1 part-time special to support the detainees and the cell block, and having that more person on scene to look after the detainees in the back. So if officers get called away, it's good to have someone back there to monitor. We have, there's addiction, drug issues. I've got the biometrics in 2 cells that watch their breathing and respirations, but still it's good to have eyes on at all times, and it's part of our the board's prisoner care and control management through the CSPA. And so that is pretty well overall what has been added. And then in March, the only addition for staffing is to replace somebody who's been off for 2 years off on WSIB. That's one position. Another is an anticipated retirement that is coming in the winter, probably gone by February, that we'll have to look at replacing. But again, I can mention that to the board when it's official in January. So overall, if you could just pull up, Carrie, it talks about staffing, and it's the budget presentation for 2026.
She's putting up 2 new full-time positions. Is that what you were saying?
Right at the top.
PowerPoint?
Yeah. And okay, so just the next slide is ours, the 3%. So $353,358 I was able to secure to allocate funds to support our 2026 budget, which includes 2 police officer positions full-time. So we've increased our crime unit to support domestic violence and sexual assault, especially. That is prevalent in our community, and having that expertise in the crime unit to support survivors of those 2, and also the outreach to be on the sexual assault domestic violence committee, working with our community partners. That's part of our community policing grant, is working with having victim advocate come into the station once a week, review our domestics. She works collaboratively with us and also is a member of the Interval House. So to have that support is important in our community, and it was an important piece of part of our grant that we had applied for. And then I just did a comparator in the next slide for other municipalities across the province and where they're at for their budget for 2026, to kind of give you an overview map of other municipal services and what they're facing for 2026. So with our 3%, we're the lowest in the province. And I think that's pretty well small and mid-size services.
Chris?
For the comparator data, could we also get a cost per household? So yes, we're the lowest increase this year, but then overall big picture, where do we fall in the province per household cost of policing?
Like, have the chief come back with that?
Yep.
Yeah, please, if there's consensus from the board.
Are these all independent or all municipal forces? No, are
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Drew?
Sorry, I just had a question. Now, how many full-time positions were you looking at adding in this budget?
Just the one to replace the one in March.
So there's only so we're not looking at, I thought you had,
No, we're not looking at increasing our complement of staffing, except to move the special to full-time.
would that be in a position that is not currently filled, or is that?
That's right. It's a new position. The special constable for us was new when the new act came into place. But we've seen such a benefit of having a special constable to do all the roles that special constable has been able to do to support officers on the road. So putting her into a full-time position for 2026 was budgeted for. But there's no additional police officers. It's to replace the one that's been off for 2 years in March. And then if we get an official retirement, it'll be to replace that person, but there's no additional police officers.
So she would take her position now and move into that one of those two positions, is what you're saying?
For the special,
Yeah.
she would go into a special constable position.
Like a full-time special constable?
Yeah.
What's the cost for that, going from part-time to full-time?
There's about maybe just under a $30,000 difference. Yeah. Yeah, all the municipal services, we're all under the same guns, I guess you could say, for budget. It's nothing new across the province, what they're seeing and what the province is undergoing. Big services too are looking at big budget increases. Coburg's looking at a 20% increase. So I was just thankful too for some grant opportunities that I was able to secure. Some of them weren't able to secure some of the grants that were given to them year after year. And then this year they were declined, so.
So just back to Chris's inquiry about asking for an updated cost per household. So my only caution there is, one, we'd want to wait until budgets are approved across the board. The second one is the issue we would have to be accurate is a delay in any impact updates, and to have an accurate number of households in a community. Because I don't think even today, we know how many we had in 2016. We probably calculate how many homes have built at it since then. But to get an actual accurate household count today, I don't know if we could do it easily.
Yeah.
Chris?
Maybe could we start with 2024 data or 2025 data? Whatever is the most, 2025 has got to be available by now.
It's still 2016 impact.
Yeah.
numbers.
Yeah, the newest kind of data I could pull from even something similar was 2021. And I can't even get accurate stats like municipally wise as far as how many like household per person, because we have houses we go to, 10 people are living in it. It's just a different, especially in the newer builds.
Yeah. So I don't know if that.
Can we,
Let's Andrew.
can we use the 2021 census data per person?
Yeah.
We've added 160.
Well, I guess it would give us.
They'll give us a baseline.
You give us some. Yeah, I guess household count.
Yeah.
And we've had obviously it'd be.
We're 160 in our two projects, like alone. It's since 2021, so
Yeah.
it doesn't. It's outdated no matter what we go with.
Yeah, I think we've been probably 400 or 500. I think at least 500 more households since 2021. But
Go behind Frere Drive.
the question is how many? I guess how do we measure? We could probably get our numbers easier, but how do we get numbers from other municipalities? But so I guess can we investigate that and see what kind of data we can get, knowing that it may not be perfectly reflective, especially if we're looking at 2021 census data and 2026 budget data. And you can get the easiest one from a census data would be population.
Yep.
we get a cost per person,
And that's increased dramatically since.
but that's the other part of it. So it'll be somewhat dated. Yeah, Chris?
Maybe a cost per ratio of the total municipal budget, because we'd be able to get municipal, whatever their 2025 approved budget was, take that as a
It's probably
percentage.
an easier one. That's an easier exercise too.
That would be great.
That would give us a ballpark while we figure out, like, I'd love to get the per household or per person, but while we figure out the data, that would be a,
Okay, that makes, that
Little more
sounds, like that'd be easier to obtain for sure.
As the mayor, you can't contact MPAC to see when they're gonna do it?
Sure again. Doesn't mean I'll get an answer, or an answer that'll be acceptable. Okay, so I guess if we can do that, once budgets are, it won't be probably till March, once budgets are approved, I guess.
even to start with 2025, just see, like,
2020,
I'm thinking more of a long-term exercise than just relevant to 2026 budget approval, but it'd be really good to know where we fall in the province and,
As far as policing cost is?
yeah.
as a percentage? Or 2020, or once PSBs approve their budgets, even if municipal budget's not approved, at least we're
Yeah.
more current that way.
Yeah,
Okay, so it probably January, February, most PSBs have probably approved their budgets. Maybe some of these are approved already, I don't know.
Yeah. A lot of the budgets, municipal budgets have been approved already.
Yeah, so-
Yeah.
okay, so let's see what we can bring back in January. Okay. Good, Chief, you can continue on here, please.
So that's overall for comms. There's one's position is paid for by a grant. The other position is a long-term disability. So I'm down 2 dispatchers. So we were going to I was looking at moving 2 to full-time in the 2026 budget. That's also been put in there as well. Other than that, that is, there's costs in clothing supplies had to go up, but other, like I said, computer, phones, that went down. So overall, just with the grants, so far, we're at a 3% increase for 2026.
Chris?
yeah, it's just the travel and meals expense numbers are up.
Yep.
What's the context of that?
So that's to do with all the training that we need for the new act, the additional training. So one of the parts in 2025, we kept that budget lower, but should have put that budget up because with more courses and training comes more traveling. Hotels have been quite expensive. I'm sure if you travel for courses or training, you see that there's definitely no discounts in hotels. We do what we can to, even with OPC, there's always a cost to some people as well as mileage. I was able to secure a grant for our car, which is the Ford Taurus, the gold Taurus that we were going to decommission in 2025 is going to stay on this year just to cover travel so people can use that car and not claim mileage. They have a car to use just for this year, and then we'll decommission it as well. And we're looking to decommission 102, which is the oldest Ford Explorer in the fleet. It's a 2017 and it's falling apart. It's the one the special constable drives quite a bit with the new vehicles that are coming in. So it's just so there'll be 2 vehicles that'll be decommissioned in 2027.
Any further questions regarding the proposed 2026 budget? Everyone comfortable making a motion to approve the 2026 budget?
We have to do that.
If not, let's meet in December and approve that. That's one or the other.
I just have an issue when we're asking for $200,000 more, yet we've got 300 and some thousand in grants. That's a net 500,000. I just have a hard time figuring out where that went. That's all.
Chief, can you
Yeah,
speak to
so
that?
a lot of it is salaries, benefits. So even having those 2 salaries covered is 250,000 and change, 252 and change right then and there. So you also have the POC grant, the local grant that also supports Sean's salary, the community service officer salaries as well. Technology, I was able to purchase quite a bit and will. So even though I budget for it, for example, the mobile kit or things that are in our budget line, I'll get it back. So training, for example, even in 2025, it's not fully complete, but I was able to allocate funds to support that training, that travel budget line, the training budget line. So it's going to be even lower. So even in 2026, although the increase is there, I'm very confident in another grant coming up and an NG911 year 4 that you'll see then some money back into the budget line to support salaries, including the IT support line for salaries. Because as we know, IT has become very critical across the province. What Kingston went through, I don't want to go through in my, as long as I'm chief, it was millions of dollars that were lost and spent with Kingston, with the hack of their system. So there's been a lot of that have been implemented and put in place to protect this service and the municipality from that. But there is money that's going to come back into 2026 once I get approval from the grants. But
What's the increase in the salary this year for the OPP? Do they?
yeah, so that too was taken into effect. So it's a 2.5% increase in the contract for the officers and the staff and that was also put into the budget as well.
So the overall changes between 25 and 26 would be the salary increases, inflationary pressure on some other parts of the budget. Special constable going from part-time to full-time.
Yeah.
And the replacement of an officer who was on WSIB. If it's still on WSIB in March, that person would be replaced.
Right.
But that wage, the portion of that wage being paid now, WSIB covering most of it.
Right.
So as of March next year, from March onward, there will be a need for that wage to come back into the budget.
That new wage has been taken into consideration already in the 2026 budget. We started it. We didn't start it till April. I didn't put it in till April because by the time you hire somebody, you get things moving. Middle of March. Because OPC, the next class, if you hire somebody without experience, it'd be March 13th. So the budget doesn't show it till March because there's no point in budgeting that obviously in January, February. So it's in.
And so I guess, Chris, I think if your comment was, we've got about a 3% increase.
Three, right?
That's been offset.
3.5 was what was it?
2.91, but it went to 3 because there was one thing that Paul Dauber, there was the CISO grant. We have $8,000 that we get for a vehicle every year. That wasn't put into the final line, and it was, and so it equals to 3%. And then
So I think your question was, even though we've got grants which total about 5% of our budget, we still have a 3% increase. Is that sort of what your
Exactly.
concern is?
So it's
Okay.
So it's actually a
6% swing.
3%.
So
So we do some grants every year which help offset. But the chief's has been more, I guess, active and successful obtaining more grants which help offset the increase. But I guess it's your concern that, well, what if those grants aren't there in 2027? Are we facing such a bigger increase at that point in time? And I guess that's something that's to be determined, I guess. Andrew?
Well, I struggle without having a fulsome discussion as to the reason why we're adding another full-time staff when right now it's part-time. We haven't really addressed that.
that was a special constable.
Yeah, special constable. We've just increased our staffing significantly. Why is there now a desire to increase it more without a fulsome discussion on that point?
and it's more to do with having the prisoner care and control or the detainee care. The board is really liable for the care of our detainees in the cells area. We don't have a cell monitor. We use our specials as somebody who has more eyes on in the back cell area to ensure their safety. And we've got fentanyl, for example, is well noted in our town, and that's what we don't want happening is overdoses in our cells, which we've had before. We've had frontline response to administer naloxone, and we have the AEDs back there as well. But it just is more support for detainees to, and part of her salary too is also recovered by the court security grant because of this reason, that she guards detainees. Bail hearings that are virtual happen in Smith Falls. We do transport. A lot of times transport's not available to pick up prisoners or detainees, so that does that, transfer or picks detainees up in different jurisdictions. So we're seeing that she's being used an awful lot, and so it increases the part-time wage. So I've decreased that part-time wage budget line and put it into a full-time special constable line.
I guess my follow-up question would be, what if we were supportive of that, there's about a $30,000 savings, so about a 0.5, I guess, on the budget. How would those responsibilities be distributed? What would have to happen to fulfill those?
We'd have to use officers, which again, that pulls them off the front line to use our frontline staffing that we so badly needed out in the community than doing the role of a special. Now the board, just to remind the board, back in 2024 for 2025 budget, the board approved 2 part-time positions for specials. That was in the 2025 budget. I didn't go ahead with it because our comm center was becoming short. I had 2 off, illnesses, that kind of thing. So I had to use more of the part-time budget to support our comm center. So that position actually was never put in place, or I didn't hire. So just to keep that in mind, that didn't happen.
There'd be an opportunity with the if the special constable position goes full time, increasing the community service or community services aspect of it, and then when that 2 years comes in March, if the community service officer has less on the plate from the special constable taking it over, it would save having to replace that position.
Yeah, we absolutely could look at that. She's done a lot for community service, whereas the community service officer has had to do a lot of support on the front lines to replace staff that were off or sick. So we absolutely can use special constables for that.
Any further questions?
Based on the fact that we're looking at a 2.5% increase on our largest number line, which is salaries, I'll change my position and say that I'm at 2.9. I'm okay with that. What can you do? Cost of living.
Okay. Andrew?
Yeah, I'm still not comfortable adding a position without, I'm at this stage, creating positions in the future means it's more difficult to rescind that.
I don't think we're creating a position, though, are we?
We're creating a full-time position.
Well, okay. What we're talking about, the special constable,
Yeah.
How many hours a week does she work now?
Right now, she's anywhere from 24 to sometimes more, depending on what's going on. The special constable position is not new. It's new to Smith Falls, but definitely not new to the province, to different police services. For example, Rockville has one on each shift. Because that's special, then they can use that special for detainee care and control, for issuing subpoenas, for doing traffic details. So if the lights go out downtown, I can put the special constable there. I'm not paying an officer to do traffic for 4 hours. For mental health, she's been great for mental health apprehensions. I can sit a special constable at the hospital for 4 to 7 hours as long as I can. And I don't have to use an officer to do that. So there's a lot of downloading that we do so that the officers can focus on the front line. She can do the behind the scenes things that you don't think of when you're sitting where you are, but I see a great value of it to have. And in fact, I had included another part-time special to help, because we do have a lot of detainees, we do have mental health apprehensions, and having that person at the hospital then takes away from an officer sitting there for 4 to 7 hours on a shift. So,
What is the cost of the special constable compared to a regular constable? What would the percentage be?
So their specials are about 89 to 90,000 with benefits, like for full time, because you do have to pay benefits.
Right.
Right now, she gets the 4% increase because they don't have the benefits. So the salary goes down, but they get benefits and WSIB. And then officers they're about 110,000 for first class. Sorry, that's just off the top of my head, but they're over 100,000.
Chris?
What's the premium we pay for overtime right now, or how does overtime work with a part-time position for those weeks that it's a heavy?
So she still gets overtime charges, but if so, no different than an officer. So her hourly rate plus 1.5. So of a percentage. So she's about $42 an hour. So with overtime, I would say close to $50.
So out of that 30,000 increase of this year's budget, is there a decrease? Like, what would the equivalent decrease to the overtime budget be?
So for her, not as much, but the more staffing you can get, the less your budget's going to be. So I decreased it in the part-time wages. So the last year, part-time wages included 2 part-time specials. So I decreased that to have the 1.5. The part-time that's budgeted for 2026 is 1,080 hours a year to kind of offset some of the costs that we would use in officers. So for example, in the middle of the night, if we had somebody that needed constant monitoring, if we don't have a special, we just would call a special in, and it would be at their rate, not overtime. But if we had to call an officer in, it'd be 4 hours minimum overtime. Even if they only work 2 hours, they get paid for 4. That's part of their contract. So the cost is always more when you're calling an officer in versus when you call a special in. And if a special's part-time and you're calling them in, but it's not extra hours, there's no overtime incurred.
Chris?
So thanks. I guess when I look at the numbers, it makes sense. We've got part-time wages for 2025. We budgeted about 220, 245 is where it's projected to come in at, and that's down to 177,
Yep.
351 for 2026.
Yeah.
So if that stays in line, like we went way over it this year, but if we can keep to that, that's a significant savings, more than the 30,000 we're looking at.
Yeah.
Over time, we budgeted 70,000 in 2025. We're projected to go to 142,000, so over double that, well over the $30,000. That's back down to the 70. Well, it's still budgeted as 70,000 for this year for 2026. So I guess looking at that as altogether, there's significant wage savings there that if this extra 30,000 helps accomplish. It's harder to break down the salaries because there's a lot of moving parts there with contract increases and positions and everything else. But I guess for me, I could support making that full time if the board's got a firm commitment of looking at that community service officer, and when that WSIB position is set to be filled, could we move the community service officer into that position and then have that special constable take a bigger role in that? Because I think because of the difference in wages, there'd be an opportunity for savings there.
Chief?
The only thing in the contract states, though, that it has to be replaced with an officer. The issue with doing that is specials have powers, certain powers, and more powers than they did before, but they're not a police officer. So at least with the community service officer, we can use him everywhere and put him in, and that saves in overtime, because if, for example, there's something going on in the community, we can pull him off and put him operational on a shift. So whereas I can't do that with a special, so that then lowers our complement for officers, because there's only so much she can do. And one of the things that we heard back from the community that we don't do enough is traffic enforcement. And so community service officer, we do use him for traffic enforcement as well, like being in the school zones and making sure that there's speeding is being documented, and being at all the crosswalks and ensuring that no one's speeding through those areas. So That's the only issue with that part. But I know I spoke with the chair about it with the overtime budget. It's something that I can't control. And it is hard to budget low because we usually go over, but we still are significantly under than what we were last year this time, if that makes sense. So to keep it lower, at least you know, okay, there's a chance it's going to increase, probably not as much because we have adequate staffing now. And then overall, even though our overtime budget went high, we're still about $311,000 under budget for 2025. So the other things come into place to kind of mitigate that
And then
increase.
a portion of the community service officer wage is covered through a grant.
It's covered, right?
So you're saying that that grant only applies if that person is a
Yeah,
support officer?
yeah.
Okay. Chris?
How many candidates do we still have at OPC?
3 at Cornwall. Yeah. So
Wow.
that was all part of the ones that we lost and the retirement. So it takes a while. I know it's hard to kind of envision, but it takes a while to hire people, to go through the process, all the background checks that have to be done. Then they go to college for 3 months, then they come back, and then they're with a coach officer for several more months. So they don't actually get out there on their own. It takes almost a solid year to get people up and running. So it takes a while. Definitely 2025 was an interesting year for us as far as getting people trained too, because it's important for me that our frontline gets the training they need even for domestic violence to kind of get that going. And coach officers, they needed training to be coach officers to do that proper training under the new act as well. So there's been a lot of moving parts. 2025.
When do we expect them done?
They're graduating December 17th in Cornwall.
Okay. And do we have any others to go to OPC, or are we done?
That's it. We're
That'll be
done.
nice to get them fully back and operational.
Yeah, so they're all accounted for in 2025 at the end, and then everyone's accounted for in 2026, except for that replacement in March of the officer who's off on WSIB. But again, there's salary recovery for that officer. There's grant recovery for three of our officer staff, and then one of our civilian staff. And then there should be more salary recovery coming on the other 2 grants I anticipate being successful for. So.
Okay. Any further questions regarding the 2026 budget? And I guess go back to Andrew, you wanting more time to digest this and to come back in December, or are you ready to move ahead today?
I'm not prepared to, you can vote on it, I'll vote it down. I'm going to vote against it today.
Yeah.
I'll support it.
I guess if we, when we were learning about the Community Safety Policing Act, there was that opportunity with the special constables to be able to reduce, maybe not reduce, but, reduce the workload on the full-time officers. So I'm okay with that position becoming full-time because it's at a reduced rate, but I really want to see how, I wouldn't mind if we had more special constables and that was able to reduce our officer numbers by Y amount, and then that reduces it in net savings. Like, let's have the right person doing the right job so that if an officer doesn't need to be doing traffic control or sitting at the hospital, we're not paying the premium for that. But the part I think that we need more information on is how that, what that looks like or how that opportunity could come forward. It seems like with the overtime savings, it's really hard to make a judgment because we can say, okay, adding this 30,000 to salaries is going to reduce these other amounts, but then we don't have that control over the overtime. It's really hard to predict that in a year, is our overtime still going to be way over what we budgeted or not? But I don't know that in a month I'm going to have more information to process that. So.
Yeah, and if I could top up to the board, when we did our operational structure, the deputy and I in 2024 for 2025, the goal was 30 officer frontline for myself down. We will be at 29, and as I'll mention now, I have no plans to go up to add to that because I think we are going to be okay if everyone stays where they need to be with that special position. And that's where when Chris, when you mentioned about replacement, we will be okay with 29 and not having to go with our plan for 30 to at least for 2026, we'll be okay. So that will help support, and it's only one position. So it's not, and 1.5 position to kind of offset that. So even day-to-day operations, when you have a mental health apprehension, so if we have, say, 20 some of those a month, if we can defer even that wait time is worth its weight in gold, even 2 hours to have that offset, or having someone in cells that needs extra attention in there, just for their safety, to have somebody back there more than, and of course less money to have that special that's trained. They get all the training that we have, and they're trained in first aid, CPR, and suicide prevention, all that. So it is a benefit, and it's certainly, I'm not asking for an additional like we had planned in 2024 into 2025. I'm not asking for anything additional except for that one role and the dispatch replacements too. So.
Okay.
So just quickly, my concern is that we've added an additional 4 staff in the last year. We haven't seen how that plays out in terms of mitigating overtime. So I think at this stage, from my perspective, adding another full-time position, even though it's a different class, is a bit premature.
Okay. And I haven't weighed in yet. I'm supportive of the special constable. I've seen the benefit in the community from a community service standpoint, but also, as I think to your comments, Chief, I mean, it's not just the cost savings when we have a special constable monitoring people in the cell to being involved in the hospital and staying with someone who's in maybe a mental health crisis. It's also preferably, I think, to have a special constable in those situations, to have a regular sworn officer pulled in off the street, off their regular duties to sit in those situations. If it's in the evening if people in a cell that need to be monitored, I'd much rather have a special there than having a regular sworn officer in a situation. So I will support the budget as presented, and we'll see if we have support. So something for a motion for approval of the 2026 budget. Moved by Chris, seconded by Chris. Those in favor and opposed? Okay, so it's carried. Thanks, everybody. It's a great discussion.
Our perspective.
No.
Yeah.
And I hope that we see good things. But like I said, the overtime budget's lower than this time last year too. So
Yes. And hopefully we don't have crises which lead to,
fingers crossed.
well, it's not just a matter of workload, it's also a matter of injury, illness, things that pull people
Things
out.
I can't control.
Chris?
I think it's going to be really important on the board's part to get the numbers that we can come back next year and have a little bit more data behind how it worked out. Because I think with the mental health nurse, it was a similar position where we said, okay, if we hire this position or if we fund this position, it's going to create these cost savings, it's going to create time savings, it's going to free up opportunities for officers. But we've had that position for several years now, and we still significantly had to increase the number of frontline officers. So we added a significant cost to last year's budget. So it's great that we have this now, but we really need to run these numbers and see, well, tangibly, how much did this save us a year from now? And was it the cost-effective decision to make? Because maybe there's an opportunity to expand this special constable contingent on the force, and maybe it was a mistake, but I want to get those numbers, and I hope the board wants to get those numbers.
I'd be interested to see what impact the Heart Hub has on our operational budget also. If it increases or decreases. I honestly don't know. I'm not, that just doesn't.
Yeah,
So.
it's a misconception too, public-wise, that I've had these conversations with people that live in that area, because I say it's not a problem area. And I went to the Heart Hub to learn more about it. I've had them meet with me personally, both wonderful people. I truly support the Heart Hub coming to Smith Falls. I think that it's going to be an amazing addition. It's not a safe injection site. It's not what you're seeing across other cities. It's a secure environment. And to top that off, do we have calls for service in that area? Absolutely. Is it more housing that we have calls for service at? Yes. So it's not the area that people think is the problem area. It's not. And to point to Chris with the MCERT team, the hard part has been the funding. As you know, the funding comes from the police service, which I don't agree with, but it does. And it's been such a struggle to get funding timely for the MCERT team. They lose people all the time, or someone goes, or there's illness. I think it's going to be important in the new year to have someone from the MCERT team come and present to the board. And I think that would be a really a good thing for the board to hear what they do and kind of the frontline stuff that sometimes they don't do or can't do. And maybe that would help in understanding the team and the dynamics and how it works. So.
Well, for sure. And I think we see great value in that role. Of course, they're technically employed by Leonard County Mental Health.
Yeah.
Again, supported by grant funding from 2 different ministries, shared with the OPP. So it's probably less than ideal, but it is adding value. And I know the council has been very supportive of advocating for increase in funding for MCERT and making permanent funding for MCERT. We've advocated, the council had advocated with the province, and I would continue to do so. But I think a presentation from the MCERT team would be of great value. Okay, so moving ahead in our agenda, we've got a few more things to cover here. We're running really late. We're going to, item A in new business, building cost insurance inspection. Vice Chair isn't here today, so we'll defer that to our next meeting. Chief, you've sort of touched on grants throughout. Is there anything further to add there?
I just want to add quickly, we were successful with the MCERT year 2 and 3, $120,000 a year. They've been aware it came so late. So it's a lot of backtracking and then waiting on VSG and CISO.
Thank you.
And then G911.
And then strategic plan, Chief.
Just want to speak quickly that Queen's University students in the business class reached out to me to go over our strat plan that's out there and some questions that they had. I took an hour of my time to speak to them. They're doing a strat plan for Gananoque, so it gave me an opportunity to ask if maybe perhaps the next round or the next year would be January 2026, if their class would be willing to do the strat plan or help the Smith Falls Police Service and Board do their strat plan to get it more in line with the Community Safety and Wellbeing or Community Safety and Policing Act. So they gave me the contact for their professor. I've reached out. I haven't heard back, but I'll reach out again. But it's certainly a great opportunity if that comes our way.
Great. I think we would all look forward to that. Thank you.
And we could defer D and E. It's increase in taxi licenses and increase to fingerprinting and criminal records checks to give the town or the board a more fulsome overview of why we want this for 2026, but certainly can wait till
okay.
then.
And then we added item E earlier, secondary employment.
Yeah, so we've got, under the Act, the members of our service have to advise the chief, and it has to be approved by the chief and the board of any secondary activity. There's 3 before you. One likes to do recreational baker at perhaps some craft shows. She's a part-time staff member. The other one designs Yeti cups, like with I can't remember what they're called, but she does some cricket, like has a cricket tool and does those designs and would like to sell those. She is a full-time civilian, and another one wants to be a hockey den mom, so that's a volunteer position. So anytime that they do anything, they need my approval and the board's, and I didn't have any issues with those, so I just wanted to let you know. So at the end, part of our reporting in the annual report, we advise what all the secondary activities are for 2025 in the annual report that'll come up in April.
Thank you. Motion for approval of secondary employment for those 3 items mentioned. Moved by Andrew, second by Chris. All in favor? That's approved. Thank you.
Not that one. Sorry, Carrie.
Oh, that's okay.
The operational deputies report. We did that.
Deputy Chief report?
Yeah.
So this was obviously printed before that.
we'll go through this for the deputy chief. He's on holidays. Just go to the next slide there. So from the month of September, October, we were at 614 calls for service, down from 639 that we had in September. We laid 72 criminal charges in October, had 23 arrests overall. Some of the breaches that we had were failed to comply with the conditions, release orders, probationary orders, court orders. So total breaches were about 30% of our charges in October. IPV cases, we were 13, down from 14. Reported assaults were 4, up from 3. Family disputes were 11. Families aren't getting along, I guess. Tis the season, you'll see a bit of that in December too. Bail violations, 6. Break and enters, we had 2 reported. Drug offenses was 1. 10 mischiefs reported and 7 harassment complaints. Mental health calls for service, we were 27. We had 3 apprehensions, and our hospital wait time was approximately 25 minutes to 3 hours. Our mobile crisis response team attended 8 of those calls, so it kind of gives you an understanding of their availability sometimes. Proactive policing, we did 21 hours of foot, 37 hours of visits to the school, 31 hours of other community service, and no bike patrol. Our traffic enforcement, we had 30 collisions, 5 on property, 20 on the highway, and 5 failed to remain. 15 charges issued related to those collisions. Traffic-related calls for service were 151. We did 89 vehicle stops, 60 tickets, charges laid from 35 of those stops. Charges were related to speeding, stop sign, traffic lights, failing to yield, careless, driving suspension, and 11 charges under the Compulsory Automobile Insurance Act were part of that. So sometimes people will, if there is an infraction, if they don't have their insurance papers with them, you have to have them. There is a charge for that. They did do Operation Impact was their stats for October that weekend. Can't read that on the paper. They laid 3 charges, gave 15 warnings, 2 under the insurance and 1 warning for that, and 2 criminal charges were laid as a result of Operation Impact, and that had to do with, I believe it was drug related and an impaired. So we had 5 criminal alcohol related drug charges in regards to traffic stops. An operation while impaired exceeded 80 milligrams of alcohol, unauthorized possession of a weapon, a drive motor vehicle with cannabis readily available, and care and control of a motor vehicle with liquor readily available. So step enforcement for October was Operation Impact. Several compliance stops were conducted. A lot of educational warnings issued, no charges laid in some of those cases. Impaired driving continues to trend upwards. There's 27 breath tests have been conducted in 2025, up from 8 in 2024. And that is because there's more officers on the road for proactive traffic stops and patrol and checking for impaired driving. And step target for November is intersection-related offenses. And we had Constables Boutelier, Sly, and Hart as our top traffic officers in September. Our criminal investigative branch, we still have the lead investigator on a missing person file. That certainly has consumed all of the time, and certainly wanted to mention my support to and condolences to Robbie Thompson's family. I went out to visit his dad George and his mom, or his sister Tabitha, and talk to his mom on the phone, just to offer our condolences. It's not a day goes by I don't think about those cases. Lawrence Bertram went missing October 2022. It's not a day goes by I don't think about him and his poor mom wanting some answers. We continue to work diligently on this, but as you know, being a small town, we have to stay very tight-lipped with our investigation process, but it's ongoing, and the team is amazing. They've solved 2 homicides in a matter of less than 2 weeks, and we're hopeful that the evidence will continue to be uncovered. There was officers that went for a trauma-informed workshop in Barrie, CSO firearm investigation. There was an armed robbery reported at one of our local Circle Ks. That investigation is ongoing. There was a complex fraud investigation from a local business, $5 million in loss. Multiple search warrants and production orders are being prepared. There is a lot of frauds that have been reported to us. To be aware, one business owner caught it in time to avoid a $1.6 million fraud because that person noticed that the email was slightly different than what was sent. So it's just things to really watch out for. And Sean is done some fraud awareness and will continue to do that. We had a sudden death investigation. It wasn't suspicious. Several sexual assault investigations are ongoing. There's a child abuse investigation ongoing. There was some intelligence gathering to do with a chapter of Satan's Choice. It's a motorcycle gang in this area that they've changed to Satan's Choice now. And sudden death investigation of a young person that had pre-existing medical conditions. So it's been a sad month for sure for some of the officers and the calls that they've had to deal with. Our business quarterly for July to September, we had 377 vehicle stops, 77 foot patrol, 61 bike patrol hours, 36 school visits hours, and that's obviously decreased in July, August. And other community service hours are 144. So we had 2,043 calls for service between July and September. And our Health IM quarterly, we're at 96 mental health calls from July to September, 10 apprehensions. So that's actually quite good to have. So that means a lot of people are deferred and there's not that crisis response that you have to apprehend somebody. The MCERT nurse or social worker attended 24 of those calls, and the wait time approximately was 20 minutes to 2 hours. There is something that just came out that Leonard County Mental Health will put out publicly, that they did get grant approval for some kind of person that would be at the hospital, like a go-between, to kind of offset. I'm not talking about security purposes, because sometimes we do have to be there if the person is violent, but kind of more of a case manager go-between, which would be helpful for us. Because if you bring someone in on a Form 1, you have to explain all over again sometimes about the person, whereas it would be helpful if it is somebody that they know or have prior history with, that you don't need to report everything all over again. These are our criminal record check stats next. And then just gave a list of the courses and workshops that our officers went to give you an idea. Under the new act, we have interviewing techniques, field court or breath tech trauma conference was really good. Community service officer, he did numerous school visits, presentations about bullying and online safety. This is something that we're seeing an uptick on with our youth, and especially having access to phones 24/7. I think it's something that, parents now are having to deal with, is how do you keep the kids safe when they have access to a phone 24 hours a day, because there is a lot online that they can access. There's a lot of sharing that they do that is deemed child pornography. And this is cases that get to our attention. It's they don't mean to do it, but they do it. So a lot of it is an education piece for our young people to learn about internet and phone safety. We did our Stuff a Cruiser Turkey Trot festivities. It was a big success for fundraising for the food bank. He did some Crime Stoppers meetings, situation tables he represents Smith Falls with. He got planning already for Polar Plunge that we do in March. Evidence vault, he looks after our property room and maintain it, which is very important under the new act, as does our special constable. He covered 6 shifts on the front line. He did the Hanley Hall Food Hub lunch appearances and ongoing collection of evidence and training some new recruits because he looks after our traffic, training on the LiDAR and the speed enforcement. And then that's it. Close off. That's the end of the operational report.
Any questions? Okay, thanks for the update, Chief. This stage, we're scheduled to meet next in January. Before we motion for adjournment, I just want to thank Clerk Costello, a familiar face over here in the corner, who's been here to support us today. Terry, thank you very much for being here. I know you're not getting up early, so you're an earlier day anyway, but I really appreciate your help.
Most welcome.
Okay, motion for adjournment. Moved by Chris, seconded by Chris. All in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you all.